I'm McNair, and coming up next, the weekend edition of WHHI News. Welcome back to the WHHI News. Boy, we've heard about those phone scams in the Lowcountry targeting the elderly. Guess what? There's a whole new element to it. It's AI voice cloning. Well, we have an expert on that here now. His name is John.Young. He also does a lot of work with cybersecurity scamming. He told me beforehand he used to be on the dark side and actually hacked in, is this right, John, to the AT&T phone system? Then he decided to be a good guy and help us out, right?
Right. Thank you for having me. And that's so true. Like many experts in security, I started out as a teenage phone hacker, and I was taught by an older person how to do it. And for 3 years, we basically got free phone calls and did all these scams. But the FBI wound up showing up at my grandmother's doorstep in New York at her house there. 2 agents came and saw my 4'11" Irish grandmother. And at the same time, they were chasing me in California. Luckily, I eluded the law basically in those days. But by the time I was 18, I decided to go on the straight and narrow route. People say my life reminds them a lot of the movie Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. And it was the best decision I ever made because I've had a 40-plus year career in cybersecurity and computer IT operations.
Well, we're glad you came over to the light side, so to speak, John. Okay, what is this AI voice cloning? What's this all about?
It's very simple. I could take your voice from this interview, and with a nice clean minute of it, I can actually write a script and be able to trick people into thinking it's you. It doesn't impersonate you, it sounds exactly like you. And at that point, I can make it faster, slower, it can sound like you're frantic, like you've been kidnapped, which is one of the major scams that are targeting older adults. It's called the grandparent scams, where hackers and scammers are calling them, and they're basically convincing them that their grandchild is kidnapped, or that they're in jail, or that they're broken down somewhere with no money.
Right, and send the money, this adds a whole new element, though. This makes it even more frightening in my mind. If it sounds like my grandchild or on the phone, I'm going to believe it. So what are you advising people to do?
Well, the first thing is, I'm with the older generation where we were kind of taught, always answer the phone. Okay, the best thing is if you see a phone number that pops up that's either blocked or unknown or that you don't know, just let it go to voicemail. Okay, that will eliminate 90% of the problem right there. Another thing is to talk to your family about this in advance and maybe have code words or phrases that you can understand between each other that someone that's pulling off these scams will never know, or basically bring up a life experience that they'll have no knowledge about. And that will avoid a lot of these problems because it's on the rise, it's rampant, and we're talking billions of dollars now. What gets reported is only a fraction of what's happening. It's the tip of the iceberg. And the best way people can report these incidents if it happens to them, and I know through teaching anti-fraud classes to older adults that this is happening with ever-increasing frequency, you can go and report it to the ftc.gov website. And they have an area where you can report any of these scams, but they're only getting a small fraction, and still we're running into the billions of dollars.
Well, I think your tip as far as having like a code word, I mean, what a great idea. So if it sounds just like my grandson or granddaughter, if they don't say the word Muffy or dog or who knows what, that you know it's not them. Or if I recall, gee, remember when we went to the ocean in, 2015 or whenever it was. If they don't know that personal information, then you know it's a fraud as well. But you're right, don't pick up that phone if you don't know the number. If it's important, they'll leave voicemail. What can you do though if you've picked up the phone, you're already into this thing? What's the best thing you can do? How do you handle that person on the other end of the line?
Okay, first thing is don't run right to the bank, because they're going to ask for a wire transfer, something like that.
Yep.
They say don't call the police, don't call your relatives. First thing you do is call your relatives, okay? And make sure that the child is safe, or that someone else knows what's going on. Because generally a cooler head will prevail and say, hey, this is a scam, Grandpa. Another thing that's interesting is one of my students had said that she knew it was fake right away because they said, Grandma, I need help. And she said, no one calls me Grandma, they all call me Nana.
There you go.
So if you say, this is Nana, what's going on? And then they start, saying, Nana, please help. Then you know that they've switched on the fly and that it's a fake.
Well, John.Young with Neutralize AI, we want to thank you for joining us on the WHHI News.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
We'll be back with more of this weekend edition of WHHI News right after this.